Hello, I'm Captain Jack and welcome to the Hangar Bay. On this channel, we take a deep dive into the best starships, technology, and more from your favorite sci-fi universes. Today, we're talking about one of Starfleet's strongest starship designs, the Inquiry Class Starship. This is the ship seen in Star Trek Picard's Season 1 finale, with the USS Zheng-He, commanded by Captain William T. Riker. These vessels were also seen throughout the next two seasons of the series, complementing fleets of starships. What made this so-called tougher ship tick? Well, let's find out. Remember to hit that subscribe button for the latest videos. While you're watching, tell us in the comments, would you command an Inquiry Class Starship, or do you prefer another Starfleet design? Let us know what you think of this ship in the comments below. Here at the Hangar Bay, we love taking command of epic starships, so when Star Trek Fleet Command wanted to sponsor this video, we loved the idea. Prepare to recruit legendary characters, crew iconic starships, and embark on missions across the Star Trek universe. You can use the link in our video description or scan our QR code to download the game for free on mobile or PC. Make it so. December sees Q's continuing event arrive. Of course, he brings chaos and events that ripple across the galaxy. New officers include Soren, Romy, and Miss Q. 20 new missions feature you excelling in events, dominating battles, and evolving your starship as you bridge the gap between G3 and G5. All while preparing for the future. But the Galaxy class fun does not stop there. Players can redeem a promo code, Crushers, to get 2 full officer unlocks and a full unlock of the Jellyfish ship, once you hit Ops 18 for free. The ship gift automatically becomes visible at level 18 for anyone who claims it. The promo is live now and runs till January 15th, so beam down ASAP. Prepare to go to warp speed today and use my link in the video description or scan our QR code to start your Galaxy class adventures in Star Trek Fleet Command today. The Inquiry Class Starship was active during the end of the 24th century and into the 25th century in the service of Starfleet of the United Federation of Planets. By the late 24th century, Starfleet's mission had altered drastically from what it was well known for. From 2381, Starfleet's primary mission changed from exploration to the Romulan relocation effort, assisting the Romulan Star Empire in the relocation of people who would be affected by the encroaching unnatural supernova of the Romulan star. However, this Romulan relocation effort would only last for 4 years under the command of now Admiral Jean-Luc Picard. On First Contact Day, 2385, Mars and Utopia Planitia shipyards would be attacked by rogue synthetics. They were hacked by a secret cabal within the Romulan secret police, the Tal Shiar, called the Zhat Vash, though this fact would not become public knowledge until 2399. Because of this attack, however, and the destruction of their newly constructed ships to assist in the mass relocation effort, Starfleet abandoned its relocation mission and returned to its previous mission, focusing on more defense for obvious reasons. The destruction of Utopia Planitia shipyards and the heavy loss of resources caused critical damage to Starfleet's infrastructure in terms of starship production and variation. The Inquiry Class Starship came to a length of 630.94 meters, and its design featured a typical Starfleet layout of saucer section, secondary hull, and 2 warp nacelles. The Inquiry's nacelles come in multiple variations, which we'll discuss later. The saucer section of the Inquiry has a large forward-facing shuttle/cargo bay, which would aid in its many missions of exploring the final frontier. The saucer section also contained 2 saucer-embedded impulse engines. Along the outskirts of the saucer, besides the forward cargo bay, were phaser strips which allowed for a reasonable arc of phaser fire. Another interesting deviation from typical Starfleet ship design was its deflector positioned behind a grid-like hull under the saucer section. Whether this grille was to protect the deflector from enemies or offered some sort of technological advantage is unknown. We could theorize that it was designed to offer more protection, given Captain Riker's statement about how tough the Inquiry class was, specifically the USS Zheng-He. The bridge was a common Starfleet design, but featured a command chair in the center and standing terminals in positions usually reserved for helm and navigation. Compared to a normal view screen, the bridge had a computerized transparent window view screen. This bridge module deviated from other bridge designs of that era, and whether its bridge module would be replaced with a more standardized module after its 2401 refit has yet to be discovered. The interior would also be similar to those seen on other starships of the line during the turn of the 25th century. These ships had much more wider corridors and were less carpeted than ships from the mid to late 24th century. Presumably, as the ship was Starfleet's toughest ship class at the time, the ship would be equipped with an impressive complement of armaments, with phaser banks, photon, and quantum torpedoes. However, we've only seen this vessel fire in fleets of other Starfleet ships. New offensive technology has been recently introduced with Starfleet ships, such as the traceable payloads, which meant that the impact of their weapons fire left residual ionic energy that could be used to track their target. This helped Starfleet ships deal with cloaked enemies, particularly stellar phenomena, which made tracking vessels harder. Whether such tech was equipped on board the Inquiry class is unknown. Starfleet would upgrade its offensive and defensive technology. The Constitution 3 class in 2401 would have metaphasic shielding, which could withstand a star's corona pressure, radiation, and energy. We know the Inquiry class possessed phasers, but we presume it also carried the standard photon torpedoes and perhaps quantum torpedoes to complement its armament. The current shuttle type employed by Starfleet at the time of the Inquiry class was a Type 14 shuttlecraft, which were mostly used as maintenance shuttles or for moving dignitaries or VIPs. They were not armed, could travel long distances at high warp speeds, and had a docking port at the rear to access smaller vessels. The Inquiry class would also have a complement of other shuttles, runabouts, but this is not known. While the Inquiry class's appearance in Star Trek Picard made it look like all the ships were the same, sparking many comments online, the starships in the season finale of Season 1 are different variations of each other. The three main variants of the Inquiry class are the Varian Fry, Tucson, and the Maui. As we see from the examples on screen right now, each design variant only has minor differences in the placement of the starships nacelles and other minor details. For example, the USS Zheng-He is a Tucson variant of the Inquiry class, while the other ships appearing in Riker's fleet are a mixture of all three, making up a very tough squadron of ships. However, regarding variants, the ship class would be refit by 2401. The hull plating would be changed to fit the new hulls of the 25th century. The angle of the nacelles would be altered, the secondary hull would have more contouring, adding extra space underneath to remove its flat underside. The 2401 version looked to have 3 different shuttle bay locations: a forward large cargo and shuttle bay located at the fore of the saucer section, an aft shuttle bay that very much resembled a Lunar class shuttle bay or Constitution class shuttle bay with its domed bay doors, and the Inquiry, which also looked to have a shuttle/cargo lift on the top of its saucer section, similar to the Sagan class. However, its deflector was the most significant change in the 2401 version of the Inquiry class. The grate in front of the deflector would be removed, and the Inquiry class would get a brand new deflector dish, making the vessel more in line with what you would expect from a deflector section on a Starfleet ship. A fleet of Inquiry class starships arrived at the planet Goulion 4, also known as Copoleus, in 2399, answering the distress call of retired Starfleet Admiral Jean-Luc Picard. They came into contact with a Tel Shiar fleet who was aiming to wipe out a colony of synthetics on the planet's surface. The Federation fleet was under the command of acting Captain William T. Riker, who came out of retirement due to being in active reserve to command the fleet's flagship, the USS Zheng-He. The Zheng-He was named after the famous Chinese fleet admiral and explorer. As a quick note, Captain Riker pronounces the starship name as Zheng-He, while others pronounce the name as Zheng-Ha. The Tal Shiar fleet was under the command of General Nadar, who had previously been an undercover operative within Starfleet, serving as Director of Starfleet Security under the alias of Commodore O, since at least the year of 2390. We do know she was undercover in Starfleet longer before that. This was similar to Section 31, which had an undercover operative as chairman of the Tal Shiar during the Dominion War. Tensions may have flared, still, conflict in the form of an all-out battle was avoided, and both the Tal Shiar fleet and the Federation fleet were able to prevent conflict and retreated to their respective territory, leaving Goulion 4 as a protectorate under the United Federation of Planets. 2 years later, the Inquiry class received refits on their secondary hulls to provide updated deflectors. In 2401, 5 Inquiry class starships would join a Starfleet armada assembled to confront the Singularity, a unique Borg ship that had emerged from a spatial anomaly. These 5 ships would be the USS Magellan, USS Nathan Hale, Rushduck, Shackleton, and the former commander of acting Captain William T. Riker, the USS Zheng-He. The Singularity would beam a Borg Queen aboard the Sagan-class USS Stargazer to assimilate the ship. This ship was vulnerable due to the new technology the Sagan-class utilized, derived from Borg technology from the artifact, which was an abandoned Borg cube turned research station. The Queen would try and assimilate and take control of the Sagan-class Stargazer and the rest of the Starfleet Armada ships, including the Inquiry-class vessels. However, after some Q-related temporal hijinks, Admiral Jean-Luc Picard and the Borg Queen, who turned out to be the hybrid of Dr. Agnes Jurati and a Borg Queen from an alternative timeline, reached an understanding. After this understanding was reached, the Armada would join the Singularity Borg ship in coordinating the effort to extend their shields to deflect a massive energy shunt from a forming transwarp conduit. This would not be the last time the Inquiry-class ships were taken control of by the Borg. Later that year, 22 Inquiry-class starships would take part in fleet maneuvers for the Frontier Day ceremony, this time the 250th anniversary of the Enterprise NX-01's first voyage. However, Frontier Day 2401 did not go well. thanks to a plot masterminded by a V-Borg Queen or V-Borg Collective. Working with a rogue faction of changelings, the Borg Queen orchestrated a plan to infect all Starfleet officers under 25 with organic Borg receivers in their brains. This would activate thanks to the organic receiver in the brain of Jack Crusher, the unknown offspring of Jean-Luc Picard and Beverly Crusher, and more importantly, Locutus of Borg. The Starfleet officers under the age of 25 were placed under the influence of the Borg and would take command of a fleet of starships, including the 22 Inquiry Class Starships. Luckily, this plot was thwarted by the joint efforts of the USS Titan-A, under the command of then Commander 7 of 9, Admiral Jean-Luc Picard, and his Enterprise crew aboard the hobby reconstruction of the USS Enterprise D by Commodore Geordie LaForge. It is unknown how many of the Inquiry Class Starships were taken over by the Borg, or destroyed by the Commandeer's ships. Until we get more stories in the 20th century of Star Trek, that is currently all we know about the Inquiry Class Starships. However, what about their storied history behind the scenes? The Inquiry Class was designed by notable Star Trek ship designer John Eaves. He based it on some early designs he created while working on the Star Trek Online video game in 2006 by Perpetual Entertainment before the license went to Cryptic Studios. The script for the final required a Starfleet starship, and Eaves sent over his designs. The Inquiry Class was picked out from the designs. 2 physical variants were created, and those were given 2 colour variations. An alternative design of the Inquiry Class, called the Cousteau Class, was similar to the Inquiry Class, but had cutouts in the ship's hull which gave it a unique look. This ship design is also a reuse of an early design for Star Trek Online from John Eaves, seen in some concept art along the design that would eventually become the Inquiry Class. The bridge section of the Inquiry Class was a redress of the USS Discovery bridge, as Jonathan Frakes would have been working on Star Trek Discovery Season 3 at the time of filming for the final episode of Star Trek Picard's first season. Star Trek Picard Season 1 showrunner, Michael Chabon, originally identified the Inquiry Class as a heavy cruiser Curiosity class starship. However, he later amended the classification to the Inquiry Class. While the Zheng-He remained the Inquiry Class, the Curiosity class would be switched to the Federation heavy cruiser USS Ibn Majid NCC 75710. One of the most common complaints and online opinions about the Inquiry Class is that it's essentially a copy and paste starship. This is evident in the Star Trek Picard Season 1 final, when we all see multiple versions of the Inquiry Class. While there are other variations of the ship, they're not drastically different for us to tell the difference. Let's be honest, it's not like the fleets we saw in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which included multiple different starship variants. Another example is the Battle of Sector 001. This not only saw many familiar starship designs, but also introduced many new ones that have since become iconic and fan favourites, such as the Akira class. The creators behind the show would hear this issue. VFX artist Brian Totsky, who after Season 1 of Picard would come to work officially for CBS and not just as a VFX vendor, would say, "A side goal of coming aboard Trek properly as a supervisor from a vendor was to never Zheng-He it ever again." The Inquiry Class would be updated for the 2nd and 3rd seasons now that the visual effects artists had the time to produce a ship they were proud of. This would actually completely disregard the original model and utilise the Star Trek Online model created by Tobias Richer. Dave Blass, the production designer for Season 2 of Star Trek Picard onwards, also adopted this philosophy and never Zheng-Heing it again. This means don't do a copy and paste fleet at the end of the season. Starship variety needs to be important for Star Trek and any sci-fi universe. Blass had started relationships with a team at Cryptic Studios to use some of the assets in the upcoming 2 seasons of Picard. These would help bolster the fleet by using pre-existing assets of Star Trek ships and scaling them up for on-screen use without having to make them from scratch. These ships would be known as the USS Ross, Reliant, Gagarin, and Sutherland class. Season 2 and 3 would also see ship designer Bill Krause join the team, first with ship models of the Stargazer Ready Room to the Dudelstadt class USS Intrepid and the Constitution 3 class USS Titan A turned Enterprise G. So, what do you think of Starfleet's toughest ship? Is it worthy of that title? Can the ship live up to the Defiant class or even the Sovereign class starships? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Remember, you can continue the Star Trek adventures in the Hangar Bay by clicking on the subscribe button and checking out more Star Trek videos on the end screen now. That's the end of this video. I've been Captain Jack in the Hangar Bay. Remember, if you're talking about science fiction, we want to hear about it.